First time I left, it felt like I'd ripped a piece of my soul out. Despite the worry and the fear, despite knowing that on some level, leaving was the right thing to do, my body didn't get that memo. There was grief where relief was supposed to be. A hollow space where something familiar used to live. When I made the decision to go back, my body settled almost immediately. There was a brief peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. Something inside of me recognized him as home, even when home had been the source of the harm. That peace lasted maybe a month. Then the anxiety began to creep back in. The requests felt more like directives, with my defenses rising quietly, almost automatically because they'd learned to, and a thought arrived with terrible clarity. This was why I had left in the first place. And yet I was inside it again anyway. That is the yo-yo cycle. It's not a statistical graph or a clinical pattern. It's a lived experience with a specific feeling in your body and a very specific voice in your head that knows the truth even when hope is sitting in front of it. Today I want to talk about what that cycle actually is and what it isn't. Most people looking at the yo-yo cycle from the outside see a simple thing. She left, she went back, she left again, and she went back again. From the outside, that looks like a choice being made repeatedly. A bad choice made repeatedly, one she should know better than to keep making. But that's not what's actually happening when you're inside of it. What's actually happening is hope meeting memory over and over again. Because here's what nobody talks about when they talk about going back. You don't forget the bad things. Those incidents don't just disappear. The fear doesn't really vanish. You carry all of that inside of you every single time. What changes is the hope that sits in front of it for a while. When he apologizes, genuinely, completely, with the kind of remorse that looks like the person you fell in love with, something blooms in your chest. That something isn't about who he is in that moment. It's about who he was at the beginning. The relationship that existed before the pattern took hold, and the possibility of getting back there. You're not going back to him, you're going back to hope. Hope is not a character flaw. Hope is what keeps us human inside something that's trying to reduce us. The problem isn't that she hoped. The problem is that he knew she would, and he used that against her. Here's what makes the cycle even harder to survive. It's not just what's happening inside of the relationship, but what's happening on the outside. Every time she goes back, the circle of friends and people she can turn to gets smaller. The friend who maybe helped her pack her things and watched her leave, she has to call that friend and explain. The family member who finally understood what was happening She's watching their facial expressions change. The people who showed up for her when she left, they have to decide whether they have enough left to show up again. And many of them don't. They don't have that energy. Not because they don't love her, but because watching someone you love return to the very thing that's hurting them is its own kind of exhaustion. And that exhaustion shows. It shows in the silences and the way conversations move on quickly when those topics are brought up. The phone calls become less frequent, and expressions in their eyes say, again, without having to even speak a word. So she stops telling them when she goes back. She manages it quietly. She carries the cycle alone because the alternative is watching the people she needs most run out of capacity for her story. The cruelest part of that isolation is the fact that it serves him perfectly. Every time the circle gets smaller, she becomes more dependent on the one person who caused the harm in the first place. The isolation isn't accidental. It's a cycle doing exactly what cycles do. There's a particular kind of shame that comes with going back that doesn't get talked about honestly. It's a shame of knowing, of having left with clarity and returning anyway. Of sitting with the thought, this is why I left, while being inside of it again. That shame doesn't just hurt, it silences. It makes her less likely to reach out the next time she's ready to leave because she's already anticipating the response. You went back again. The anticipation of that, the preemptive shame, can be the thing that keeps her inside of the cycle longer than anything else. I want to be clear about some things that the yo-yo cycle is not. It's not evidence that she doesn't love herself. Loving yourself is not a switch that you flip. It's not information that arrives one day and makes every subsequent decision clean and clear. A woman can know her worth and still go back. She can have genuine self-respect and still reach for hope when he offers it. Those things are not contradictions. They're just the reality of being inside of something that's deliberately designed to keep you confused. The cycle is also not evidence that she doesn't want to leave. Wanting to leave and being able to leave are two completely different things. She may want nothing more than to be out and still be navigating finances, children, housing, safety, and other attempts before actually leaving becomes permanent. Wanting is not the same as being able, and being unable is not the same as being willing to stay. The cycle is also not evidence that she's addicted to drama or chaos. This narrative is particularly cruel because it turns her survival response into a personality flaw. She didn't develop a taste for chaos. She developed a nervous system that learned to function inside of it. That's adaptation. That's a body doing what bodies do when they've been living in chronic stress long enough. The cycle is not evidence that she can't be helped, or she's too far gone, or that the people in her life are right to give up. The cycle is not a measure of her potential. It's a measure of how sophisticated the trap was. I've lived inside of this cycle. If you've gone back once or twice, more than that, I want you to hear this. You are not weak. You're someone who is optimistic, who's hopeful, who maybe wants to believe the best in other people. The hope you felt when things got better was real. It was yours. It belonged to something genuine that existed at the beginning, that you had every right to want back. He used that hope deliberately. That is not your failure. That's his. The people who pulled away, the circle that got smaller, the shame that you carried quietly every time you went back. None of that was evidence that you were too broken to help or too far gone to reach. It's just evidence that the people around you didn't understand what they were looking at, and the clarity that you had, that inside voice that said, "This is why I left," even while you were inside it again. The voice never left you. It was inside there the whole time waiting. The voice is the part of you that kept fighting, even when that fight looked like hope. Even when fighting looked like going back. Even when it looked like surviving one more day inside something that was slowly taking you apart. Going back was never the opposite of strength. Sometimes it's the only way you move forward. I'm Maria. I hope you'll join me as I continue this conversation. Until next time.